Good evening, everyone. This is Business Spotlight, and I am your host, Dani Reaves. Thank you for joining us this evening. As you know, we always ask that you like, share, tag any individuals that may have an interest in what we're going to get this evening. Of course, I am here with personal injury attorney Samuel Anyan, and he is going to talk to us today about what a personal injury attorney does. Well, we're going to focus on a particular topic, but before we get started, I'm going to ask you to feel free to ask questions. Feel free to chime in, make comments. You're here to get your questions answered. But before we get started, let's introduce you again. How are you?
I'm well. How are you this evening?
Good. It's great to always be in your presence and get information.
Absolutely.
And get great information. I learned a lot at our last session. For those that don't know what a personal injury attorney does, talk to me about what areas of law does that actually focus on?
A personal injury attorney is quite simply an attorney who represents individuals due to no fault of their own have been injured. And that injury is due to negligence. Either someone did something they weren't supposed to do, or they didn't do something that they were supposed to do.
Okay.
So that's the definition of negligence, meaning you fell below the standard of care.
Okay.
That can be, like I practice medical malpractice. So when a doctor's care or a nursing home facility or some health care facility, their care falls below the standard in the industry, well then if someone's injured because of that or made worse off, then they have a claim or a remedy at law.
Okay.
Automobile accidents, that's typically what people hear about the most when they think about personal injury. If you're driving and you rear end somebody, well, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And as a result, the person who gets injured has a remedy at law. And so that's where I would step in to help you against insurance companies, against the defendant to recover what's right and just for you.
Okay.
I also handle construction site accidents. That sometimes you have different employers who do not provide safety equipment like fall protection and things like that.
Okay.
And people get injured. Construction workers fall from 5-6 stories up and they can't work anymore.
Yeah.
Workplace injuries doesn't have to be a construction site accident. It can be any workplace where you get injured. I help people in those situations. Nursing home care. Civil rights cases when law enforcement puts their hand down too heavy and they shoot someone or they hurt someone.
That's where you come in.
In an excessive manner. That's where we come in.
Okay.
And also help people who've been involved in slip and fall accidents, known as premises liability.
All right. And that's actually what we're going to focus on this evening, slip and fall. It's the winter time. Things could happen, not even just wintertime, anything could potentially happen with you slip and fall. And a lot of people may not know what happens next, who's liable, who do I contact? And that's where a personal injury attorney comes in. So I'm actually going to ask you questions, and guys, feel free to chime in. Have your questions, just send them on here. We can actually see them. But I'm going to ask questions as if I am coming to you as, what do I do next? So here's the first question. If I were to fall in or outside of a business or resident, who would I sue?
All right. The law states that a landowner is responsible for dangerous conditions on their land.
Okay.
So we would first look to the deed to find out who owns the particular home, who owns the particular business. Though that individual we first look at as being the person responsible.
Okay.
Now, if that landowner rents out the property to someone else, meaning someone else has the responsibility of taking care of the land, then they could be liable first and the landowner liable secondarily.
Okay.
You see this mostly in commercial buildings where you got Kmart who rents out the office space or the mall space from some big corporation. Well, the big corporation, if it's on their land and they're responsible for the land, then they would have to cover it. But if it's inside Kmart where this big corporation, they don't manage or maintain or clean and inspect the inside, then the Kmart or whoever it was on the inside of the building would be responsible.
Okay.
So it's a two-step analysis. Who owns it?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the maintenance? That's what we look at.
Okay. What steps should a person take after a slip and fall incident?
Okay. There are two types of injuries that happen. There's a slip and fall, and there's a trip and fall. A slip and fall is just like it sounds. You slip on something, but most people see snow and ice. You slip on snow or ice, it's slippery. You slip on water. You slip on a banana peel or some other slippery substance that's on the floor. But then you also have a trip and fall where there's some unevenness to the pavement, some obstruction or defect that causes you to trip forward. You either slip back or trip forward.
Okay.
So in those cases, the first thing you should do if you find yourself the victim of a slip and fall or a trip and fall is to first take care of your body. Assess whether you are injured or not. It may not be safe. It may not be advisable to get up right away. You may call out for help. Look for any witnesses that may be around. Try to figure out what caused you to slip. Those are the first things you want to do. Assess your body, assess the condition that caused you to fall. The next thing you want to do is if you're inside a facility or some business, is contact the manager or speak to some personnel inside to make a report of it.
Yeah.
All right. We want to document your injury. Once you've assessed your body, once you've assessed what caused you to fall, you next want to talk to and memorialize what happened. If you're able to take pictures, take pictures. If not, if someone around you is able to take pictures, it's good to take a picture of the condition that caused you to fall. That's important because oftentimes the number one defense to a slip and fall or trip and fall accident is that the person should have been watching where they were walking. The law says you have a duty to watch where you walk, but that's not an absolute duty. Things can cause you to slip and fall, to trip and fall that were unbeknownst to you.
Yeah, that actually answers part of my next question is, what evidence would they need to receive compensation for slip and fall? And that's pretty much having those pictures. Outside of those pictures, what other things should they gather?
Well, there's a couple things. If you're inside of a business, a lot of businesses have internal surveillance cameras. We'll look for those. Oftentimes there are witnesses in a busy grocery store or in a department store. Mostly there's someone who saw or heard something about your fall. A lot of times we're not alone. We have people with us, getting the contact information of the people we're with, memorializing that, asking for surveillance footage, or at least putting them on notice that we may need that footage is important to start out with.
Okay. What if I get hurt in a slip and fall accident at someone's house, and I don't have insurance?
Right. Well, most homeowners' policies have something called med pay, meaning it has nothing to do with fault. The policy may pay $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 towards an injured party's medical bills. That also happens at businesses. Whether the business is at fault or not, they have something called med pay, where they may pay a certain percentage of your medical bills just because you got injured on the property and it's covered within the insurance.
That's good. Good information. Great information. Now, what if I get hurt in a fall on a sidewalk or other public property that is owned by the state government, local government, or federal government?
Now, this is different. This is this can be very tricky, and I get a lot of calls that, hey, I fell on a SEPTA platform, or I slipped and fell and I broke my ankle at a public school. The government has something called sovereign immunity, and if you're a governmental entity, like a government building, a government subsidized building, or a government owned building, you can only sue under certain circumstances. Okay. You can't slip and fall on something that's on the property, meaning some artificial substance on the property, like snow, ice, water, a banana peel. All right, you can't recover in Pennsylvania for dangerous conditions on the property. It has to be a substance of the property. And what we mean by of the property is there has to be a defect in the ground itself or in the sidewalk itself. Okay. That's of the property. Or some fixture of the property is sticking out and you trip over it.
Yeah. Okay.
If it's a governmental entity, you can only recover under those circumstances. You cannot recover under circumstances where someone spilled some water and it froze over, or just snowed and there's ice, or there's a banana peel on the ground. Unfortunately, in the Commonwealth, you can't recover for that.
Well, that's good to know, because I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's tough. The law's tough.
That is tough. What if the property owner denies the responsibility after you have this accident on the property?
Yeah. Inevitably, most property owners are going to deny liability for a slip and fall or a trip and fall accident. And the reason why, again, the number one defense is the person should have been watching where they were walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a puddle on the ground, but you should have been watching where you were walking. Yes, there was a banana peel, or yes, there was ice there, but you should have walked around it. Or you should have been able to notice and assess a danger and work to avoid it. So oftentimes what we talk with our clients is, you had to walk into your office building, or you had to walk into this grocery store by this entrance.
Okay.
Yes, you noticed that there was ice and snow, or yes, you noticed there was a defective condition. Was there any other way you could have gotten into the building? And if the answer is no, well, then that helps us.
Okay.
Was there another reasonable means for which you could have entered the building safely with the condition? Meaning, did they have handrails up? If they didn't have handrails and they knew there was a dangerous condition, then they aided in your fall.
Okay.
So those are sort of the things that we look for is, no other alternative means and methods of getting to that direction. Any other distractions? One thing in a grocery store, a lot of times there are things on the ground that people slip and trip and fall on. And the defense is, hey, they should have been watching where they were walking. But then we look at the area and we survey the area where they fell. And we see a big sign that says 2 for $1 or $9.99, something that's catching the eye. So when they have signs up or advertising up that's catching your eye, then your eye naturally goes to
the catchy sign.
To the catchy sign, and you may not see where you were. And inevitably, the water or the dangerous condition, the banana peel or whatever it is, the grapefruit, the grapes are sitting right on the floor, right by the display.
Now, what about if I'm at a grocery store and it says wet floors, and I didn't see that sign, but the sign was clearly there, and I fell? And is it my fault for missing that sign that said wet floors? Because I often see that a lot.
That's a great question, Danny. When you have a sign that says wet floor, okay, they have provided what's called a warning. The law says that a landowner is responsible for warning you if a dangerous condition exists.
Okay.
But that doesn't exonerate them from liability. All right. Was there a reasonable method or means in which you could have avoided that wet floor? If there's a wet floor sign in the front of the building, all right, you go to grocery stores or department store and it's raining outside, it's a strip mall, and you come inside the building and there's a big wet floor sign there. Do they have carpet or mats sitting there that can absorb some of the water? That should be expected. If they just have a wet floor sign up and they don't have carpet down to protect you or to minimize the water, then they can be responsible. And that's where a competent lawyer would hire a human factors expert, an engineering expert, someone in the field to deal with grocery safety that would talk about the safest thing that grocery store could have done to prevent the incident. And that's normally where the case lies.
Great information. Wow. Because I see that often, all the time. I'm like, so what if I'm trespassing and on someone's property, have no business being there, and I hurt myself in the process? Or my child is trespassing and they hurt themselves in the process. Who's liable?
That's a great question. The law affords different responsibilities to landowners depending on if the person was invited to be on the land, if the person was reasonably expected to be on the land, or if the person was not to be on the land at all. In a situation, as you're describing, where an adult is trespassing on a landowner's land, they're only responsible for defects that occur that would not have been known to anyone else. Okay. So if I'm responsible to a trespasser who's on my land, if I have a booby trap that's laid out on the ground that would chop your head off if you come on my land, I'm responsible for that. But if there are things on the ground I don't know about and you're trespassing, well then you're walking on your own risk.
Okay.
All right.
That's actually good. Good to know. What happens if I fall down on ice or snow and I'm injured? What happens with that?
It depends. If you are walking and you slip and trip on ice and snow, it depends on how long the snow and ice was on the ground. All right. Most city ordinances, county, state ordinances provide that landowners have a reasonable period of time in which to shovel and remove snow and ice. If it is still snowing outside and you slip and fall on your neighbor's sidewalk, but the snow is still coming down, then it wouldn't be reasonable to have expected your neighbor or the landowner to have shoveled and removed snow and ice while it's still accumulating. Okay. So there has to be a reasonable time period between the time the snow and ice stopped and the time in which it should have been removed. And what the law uses is a reasonable person test. How long does it take a reasonable landowner to remove snow and ice from the time that it is on the ground and nothing else is accumulating? Typically, there's a few hours there.
Okay.
If it snows overnight, you would expect maybe mid-morning, something along those lines. But it depends. If it's a busy street where a landowner would expect people to walk out early and have seen them in the neighborhood, it's part of the culture that people are out and about early, and the weatherman says it stops snowing at 4 o'clock. Well, by 8 o'clock, it may be unreasonable for you to still have snow and ice down.
Right.
If you are a business, you owe more of a duty to people who you invite to shop at your store. So if Walgreens is open or there's a 24-hour Target or Walmart and it's still snowing, all right, and the snow just stopped, but I'm open for business, I'm responsible if somebody slips and falls due to snow and ice in and around my property because I've invited them in to sell them something or to trade something. So, the law really looks at what the landowner's purpose in having the land is.
Okay, that's good to know. Typically, how long does a slip and fall case take to be resolved?
Right. Just like all personal injury cases, the law in Pennsylvania and New Jersey provides you have 2 years to file a lawsuit. And why is that? You have 2 years to file a lawsuit because it may take that long to really understand the effects that the injury has had on your body long term.
Okay.
What is the long-term prognosis for a broken ankle that requires rods and screws placed in your ankle or your arm to fix it? We call it internal fixation surgery. So for something like that, they may have to remove the rods and screws. How does your body heal after that? So we take an assessment. It's a case-by-case basis. Typically, I see clients with broken bones that may take a year or more before we're able to even assess what the long-term damage may be, what the long-term effects may be. So cases can range 6 months to 2-3 years. Just depends on the injury.
Yeah. Mr. Granger, what this is about, Sam isn't a personal injury attorney. We're talking about slip and falls and kind of giving you the rundown of what to do after a slip and fall. So feel free to ask any questions or make comments as we continue this. Here's a few scenarios for you, Sam. Let's just say I fall and I don't want to sue my loved one or friend, but my medical bills are, they're piling up. What can I do, if anything?
Right. There's a misconception out there in the public that for some reason when you sue someone, you are suing them personally. Yes, their name is on the docket. Yes, they're on the complaint. But a lot of times the money that you're seeking is provided by an insurance company who's insuring the property. If there's an action that a loved one didn't take that they should have taken, yes, they're negligent. Yes, you're technically suing them. But in most cases, if they have hazard insurance, their insurance, what they've already paid premiums for, will cover the injury. You shouldn't be bashful, especially if your medical bills are accumulating, and bringing claims against loved ones if their actions caused the accident. That's why they have insurance. And trust me, the insurance companies had no problem taking their premiums.
Yeah, every month.
Charging premiums every month.
Every month.
So please don't be bashful. Take advantage of the money that is there that will pay your bills, that will compensate you and get you back to where you need to be.
Yeah. I fell on my neighbor's step, but she lives in a rental property. Yeah. Who's responsible?
In a situation where someone falls on land that's rented by a third party, we look to the terms of the lease agreement. So if you're renting a townhome or you're renting a home, is the person renting responsible for removing snow and ice or for maintenance of the sidewalk? All right, what does the lease say? If the lease says that the landowner is responsible, meaning the landlord is responsible, then we sue the landlord. If it says that the tenant is responsible, then we sue the tenant.
Yeah.
In some situations, we sue the landowner, we sue the tenant, and we sue the city.
Oh, wow.
Because in some instances, all three may have some liability.
So that's 3 different cases.
Well, it's 3 different defendants within one case.
Ah,
yeah.
that gets interesting.
Yeah. The law of slip and fall, it can be very complicated.
Very complicated.
But interesting nevertheless.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that they particularly have, that you may have a case. So this is great information. So feel free to tag your loved one, share this video, like this video. This is some great information for those that possibly have been injured and just don't know what to do next. How can you help with the slip and fall case, and how can they get in contact with you if they have an issue or they just have a concern and want to do a consultation?
Sure. If anyone viewing this video, if you have any questions about a slip and fall accident, about premises liability is the area of law we call it, who's responsible if there's an injury on the premises. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. My number is 215-935-6901. You can reach me by email at sam@samanyan.com. You can also, I'm also on Facebook, Samuel Anyan. I'm on Instagram, SAANYAN06. That's SANyan06. Please reach out to me any medium. I'm here to assist you in any way.
Sounds good. And guys, I will be placing all of Sam's social media handles, as well as his contact information, website, all on the show after we go off air. This is obviously, it's a live show now, but it will be circulating. So don't feel shy, even after the show goes off, to ask any questions. Sam has been tagged in this. I have been tagged in this. So your questions will be answered, and you can reach out to Sam personally if you don't want others to know your situation. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you so much, Sam.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you,
for giving us information. And guys, we will see you in a couple weeks where we will talk about another personal injury a heading that you actually focus on. So we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you as always.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, have a great rest of the evening. See ya. Bye-bye.
Take care.